Picture this. Time trial on Monday, even though you're racing Saturday. All out 200s until everybody on the team's puking. Running the same 6 by 400 meter workout every single week. If this sounds like your high school training program, you're training the wrong energy system for distance running, and it's limiting how good your athletes can become. Let me explain. My name's Kevin Kuhn. I've been studying the physiology of exercise for 20 years and coaching distance runners for 10, focusing primarily on middle school and high school athletes. One of the most consistent pieces of feedback I get from kids that I've coached privately is that their public school and private school coaches don't really understand programming or training progression. I've heard that exact same thing from many of those coaches themselves. So today I want to talk about the biggest and most common mistakes I see in programming for middle school and high school distance running. If you took a random sample of high school training programs this week, you'd probably see max effort 200s, 6 to 8 times 400 meters at mile race pace, except they're run faster than mile race pace, so that athletes need longer rest breaks than they were prescribed. A time trial on Monday or Tuesday, even though they've got a race or a meet scheduled for Thursday or Saturday. And all of those workouts just recycled week after week after week, without really any emphasis on just easy running, just time on your feet, accumulating volume. The thinking is you have to train fast to race fast. And there is some truth to that. But here's the problem. Most high school athletes are racing the 800, the mile, the 1600, the 2 mile, and the 5K. And research on energy systems shows us something critical about these distances. Let me give you the numbers. The 800 meters, research shows us it's about 60% aerobic for males, 70% aerobic for females. Even the shortest standard distance event is aerobically dominant. The mile or 1600 or 1500, that jumps up to 77 to 86% aerobic depending on the athlete. 3,000 meters or 3,200 or 2 mile, that's 86 to 94% aerobic. The 5K, 90 to 95% aerobic. If you have athletes that are taking more than 30 minutes to run a 5K, then that's 95+% aerobic. So if you're coaching distance events and you're coaching distance runners for these events, and most of your hard workouts are all out 200s or a bunch of max effort 400s that are supposed to be at mile pace, but they're faster than mile pace, or you're doing a time trial 2 or 3 days out before a race, you're spending most of your training time developing the smaller energy system for the races your kids are actually running. And to make matters worse, the total training volume often isn't enough. A 1 mile warm-up, the workout itself, let's say it's 8 times 400, and then a mile cool down, you're looking at 4 miles worth of total work. It's just not enough. It's not enough if you're trying to maximize aerobic adaptations or if you want to see significant progression throughout a season. You're doing the wrong kind of work and you're not doing enough of the right kind of work. Doing this creates 3 major problems. First, it's limiting long-term development. The aerobic engine takes time to build, years, not weeks. And when you emphasize anaerobic work at the expense of consistent aerobic work, you're shortening the runway for how long an athlete can improve. Secondly, it doesn't develop the mechanisms that actually produce energy during their races. By doing all of this speed work, your athletes are getting really good at something that might contribute 15 to 20% to their mile time, while underdeveloping the system that contributes 80 to 85%. And thirdly, and this is what I hear most from athletes that I don't coach, it creates constant fatigue, soreness, and burnout. High-intensity anaerobic work is extremely stressful on the body, and it just requires more recovery. And when that's your primary training stimulus, your athletes feel tired and beaten down all the time. So what's the alternative? Well, I'd say instead of making the workouts look and feel like a race, you should do the kind of work that prepares the body physiologically to be the most prepared for the energy demands of the race. In other words, if the energy demands for the 5K, which are 90 to 95% aerobic, then you should probably structure your training to look like that instead of making it feel like a 5K race. You match your training intensities and the total work volume to the actual physiological demands of the races you're preparing for. Instead of doing all your workouts at 200 race pace or 400s at 800 race pace or a ton of 800 race pace work structured some other way, or everything at mile race pace or a ton at 3200 race pace, I recommend you do the majority of your workouts at marathon race pace, half marathon race pace, 10K race pace, and 5K race pace. Focusing on these slower race paces, 5K to marathon, this is the stuff that builds the aerobic engine. This is what develops the mechanisms that deliver oxygen to muscles and clear lactate efficiently. This is what creates the foundation that allows athletes to improve year after year. The faster stuff, the all-out 200s, the 800 race pace, the mile race pace, all of that absolutely has a place, but it's supplemental. It's seasoning. It's not the main course. Focusing on these longer race paces, 5K to marathon, emphasizing them, that's how I've been programming for years. My athletes tend to progress more steadily, they tend to stay healthy, and when they get to college, they're prepared for higher training loads and continued improvement because they've built that aerobic foundation. More importantly, they typically don't burn out. They actually enjoy running, and many of them keep running after their competitive careers are over because we didn't destroy their love of the sport chasing short-term results. In the next video, I'm going to break down what marathon pace, half marathon pace, 10K pace, and 5K pace actually do physiologically, and how to structure workouts around these intensities. If you're a coach who wants to develop athletes for the long term, not just win next week's meet, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. I'm going to be sharing my complete philosophy and my programming system that I use with my private athletes as well as the kids that I coach on my team. Please drop a comment if you have a question or if you disagree with anything I've said. I'm here to have a real conversation about training and programming. Please follow me on X and Instagram at coach_Kevin Kuhn, and I will see you on the next one.